Hello, everyone. We are so excited to join you today. My name is Kinsley. I am a customer success manager here at HiCounselor, and so happy to have Daryl with me. We have got a lot of good things in store for you. I'm going to give everyone just a minute to get logged in and join us. We've got viewers on YouTube and on LinkedIn Live, so again, just so happy to have everyone that is viewing today. Just to keep this interactive, we're going to have a Q&A about halfway through the presentation and then again at the end. But for now, if you don't mind, just drop it in the chat where you're joining from, just so we can see where all of our viewers are at and see the different locations and time zones and areas represented. So feel free to drop in the comments where you are joining us from. We're just so happy to have all of you. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of HiCounselor if you are new to our platform and what we do. So we are a career accelerator, and we help job seekers land their dream job. We have got about a 4-week training period that covers important topics related to interviewing. And so that's going to cover HR, technical, and behavioral interviews. So really just making sure that you feel confident and comfortable as you land interviews and then attend those and crack them. We also will optimize your resume, your LinkedIn profile. We've got sessions and topics that cover networking, salary negotiation, all those good things that you need when pursuing your dream job. And then we've also got instructors that will help with one-on-one mock interview prep. And you'll have a dedicated CSM, it could be me, to help you through the process as well. And so some of the things that we do and how we help you land those interviews include automated email networking and the automatic job application process. We also are able to refer you directly to hiring managers that are seeking to hire HiCounselor candidates. So lots of really good tools and resources. We also have some upskilling for you. We've got some live projects. We've got some assessments. So lots of really, really good things. I would definitely encourage you to check out those real world live projects that we run through our LinkedIn account. So a really great practice for you if you are looking to gain a little bit more experience. I'm going to be dropping a link to the next sign up for that real world project at the end. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And so, yeah, it's, again, just a great way to add something to your resume to really impress recruiters and employers. So we are currently accepting candidates that are looking for positions in software engineering, data science, and sales related roles. So if that is you, feel free to click on the links at the end of this presentation for more information. I know this was a really quick overview. We do host info sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern time, but we will definitely give you the links for that and be able to provide you so much more information as those info sessions occur. Our next cohort is on July 24th, so feel free to take a look at the events that we're hosting on LinkedIn and head over to the HiCounselor website if you are interested in joining us. Okay, so the reason why you all are here is to focus on writing effective resumes. And so we've got Daryl, who is a data scientist at Gravity AI, where he specializes in providing customized data science solutions for their clients. He's also worked as a software engineer at Lockheed Martin, where he developed aircraft fire control system software that's utilized by warfighters in over 20 countries. He's also served as a data analytics engineer at Tesla, where he developed data processing techniques to evaluate performance and detect failures in photovoltaic.
Yeah, photovoltaic. Yeah, I just say solar panels.
There we go. Okay.
I should change
Keep
that.
it easy.
Change
Layman's terms, right?
Yeah.
And storage products. So Daryl graduated from the Florida Institute of Technology with a degree in computer science, we're so excited and happy to have him here, sharing some resume tips. So, Daryl, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so what I thought would be great today, I had a plan, just opportunity to review a lot of Peak candidates' resumes as part of my work with HiCounselor. So I thought of what would be great would be to have a webinar on just resumes, like how to actually craft a resume that actually will, get somebody's attention. Because I know that's one of the biggest pain points that a lot of when people reach out to me on LinkedIn or other social media platforms, they say, "Oh, what can I do to get interviews?" And I've noticed that there are certain things that I've seen a lot of candidates do on their resumes, and I thought, hey, let me just give them some tips that can actually make a difference. So what this webinar is going to be about is so you're going to learn three things. So you're going to learn what most candidates do wrong when it comes to their resumes, why majority of the resumes that a company will get through a job portal, or if you reach out to a recruiter and send them a resume, why most of them don't actually may not convert to like an interview. And you're going to learn some common mistakes that are going to be people make when writing resumes, and you're going to learn some pretty good solid, I call them bite solid tactics you can use to actually craft resumes that actually can get people's attention and might make hiring managers want to interview you. So I'm just going to go, before we get to that part of the webinar, I'm just going to cover a little bit about me. So as Casey mentioned, I graduated from the Florida Institute of Technology with a bachelor's degree in computer science. And I started out my career working as a software engineer for Lockheed Martin, where I worked on two government programs. One was when I was writing software for the F-35 program, probably one of the biggest, most premier government programs, probably still to date. And it was great. It was a great experience. I actually got exciting to actually work with a huge team of engineers from all over the country and actually write software, work with code bases that are like probably millions of lines long. So it was a great experience. And I learned quite a bit about how software engineering works. And then along the way, I had an interest to kind of expand in my career path. And after doing some research, doing some Googling, doing some soul searching, talking to people, professionals on LinkedIn, I decided, hey, I want to become a data scientist. So I made a transition. So I got some training at a boot camp in San Francisco, and then after over a few months, I was able to start landing roles in data science. So one of the first companies I worked for was a AI startup that was building a computer vision product, a health computer vision product. And then I was able to leverage some of my experience at that startup to get a job working at Tesla. And then probably in 2019, after I was laid off due to some reorg, I decided to become a freelancer. So right now I work with several different companies as an independent contractor, providing a combination of software engineering and also some data science, machine learning services. All right. So what I first want to talk about is what a resume is not, because a lot of people, majority of people have an ill-conceived notion of what a resume is and what actually makes a company want to hire, or not hire, but interview. So what a resume is not. So the first thing a resume is an autobiography. It's not an autobiography. It's not, it shouldn't include a picture of yourself or any personal information about your marital status, your children, number of children you'll have, your sexual identity, your age, your political affiliation, your astrological signs, it shouldn't include anything about that. It's supposed to convey some of the skills and information that's relevant to what the company cares about. So another thing that the resume is not your entire work history. So it's not all the history of like what, all the jobs, little jobs, side gigs you had from since childhood. In general, you typically want to go back no more than 10 to 15 years in a resume, and it should only really include the roles that are relevant to the job that you are applying for. So another mistake that people often make on their resumes is they list their goals or their aspirations or their objectives. So I see a lot of people who are on a lot of resumes that I review is they may have a little missions, a objective statement. I graduated and I'm seeking a role. I desire a role as a data scientist for this company starting in May 2013. Or we may already pass, so it's probably let's say like September. Yeah, September. So the fact of the matter is companies don't really care about what you want. They care about what you can do for them. So one of the things you want the little mindset switches you want to make in your resume is don't ask what the company can give you, but ask what value you can provide to the companies you're wanting to work for. So another thing I see a lot of some people do on a resume is they may when they're listing their experience, describing the experience they've done, the work they've done, they list it as a kind of a list of responsibilities, things that they were supposed to do. Like you can look at the resume, you can see it literally reads as a kind of a direct copy and paste of the job description in you'll see on the post. While you do want to talk about what are the responsibilities you've done, but you also want to talk about how you did those responsibilities. What was the impact you did? And that's actually I'll go into a little bit more about what I mean by that. But you want to on your resumes, you want to include more than just the responsibilities. That's not enough. That's not enough to tell someone looking at your resume, a recruiter or hiring manager, what you can do, what's your capabilities. So a last thing I've seen other people do, a lot of candidates do, particularly ones that are kind of new grads, is they treat the resume as like a college application. So remember, when you're applying to college from high school, you list, let's say, a bunch of clubs and activities you're involved with. Maybe you'll list your high school GPA, or you'll list organizations you've volunteered with. So they treat it like a college application, when that's not what it is. It's more of a business document that's conveying a message to the company. So what is a resume? So a resume is, and I alluded to it already, what a resume is actually of a marketing document. So the only goal of a resume is to get you an interview. So the resume itself doesn't give you the job. That's what some people think. Resume just is supposed to get you the job. But what the resume does is it's supposed to get you that interview. So a good resume, a very effective resume for a company will answers two questions for anyone who's looking at it. The first question is, who are you? Who are you professionally? And the second question is, what can you do for me? What value can you provide to the company? So what a business. So when you're trying to apply full time at a company, the company is making an investment in you as a person, as a professional. So what they're concerned with, they want to make sure that if we invest, if they invest in you, what are we going to get? What are we going to get out of our investment? So companies spend, believe it or not, a lot of companies spend, and it was something I actually learned a few weeks ago when I was at a kind of another webinar I was attending. So companies spend a lot of money in just hiring a lot of money putting out job ads on different sites, actually contacting different recruiters and recruiter services to help kind of to try to look for qualified candidates to interview. So companies spend a lot of money just trying to look for candidates to interview, and then they will spend even more money when they hire you. So they really care about what a company really cares about and what they're looking for when they screen for these resumes, to see if you'll be a possible good investment from the time they're spending looking for an employee. So not only does a resume answers those two questions, but it also tells a story. It creates a narrative about you as a professional. What are some of the problems you've solved? What are some of the challenges you encountered? What are the problems you've solved, and what you can possibly do if the company hires you? Most recruiters and people spend on average 5 to 10 seconds on a resume. So they'll look at the resume and they'll spend 5 to 10 seconds on it, and then they'll make a judgment call as to whether or not they want to interview or not. So you want to be able to you want to be able to create some sort of narrative to your resume, and the best way the narrative should be like a one sentence summary of what you can do. One tip that I had a previous webinar with HiCounselor, and I actually gave this tip. So I'll give this tip again. So one of the things you could do to really test whether you are crafting the right message is to find a couple of people, like maybe friends, family, associates, and actually hand them your resume and let them look over it at 5 to 10 seconds, and then take the resume away from them and ask them, okay, what are you getting? If you were to describe my narrative in one sentence, what would it be? And you can use that as a way to let you know whether or not you actually crafted the right message. If what you have on a resume is actually conveying the story you want to tell. So your one sentence story should be, let's say, for example, I'm Bob, the data analyst who can help you do blank. So what do you want to help companies do? Do you want to help them, let's say, save money, reduce costs? Do you want to help them build software, use data science to build software solutions that actually scale very well and actually improve conversion rates? So use your background and skill sets, what some of the things that you've done in the past, to help you create a narrative that actually stands out to recruiters. That's one of the ways you want to stand out from the millions of other people who are applying to the same job who's not really doing the same thing, because most of them are not. They're treating it like some of the 5 bullet points I've talked about earlier. Okay, so we're gonna sort of, over the next couple of minutes, we're gonna go through some of the key components of a resume. So contact information, experience, technical skills, the education, and how to actually properly represent some of these elements in the resume to actually, make yourself more presentable to recruiters. So the first point, so the contact info. So contact information, it's typically the first thing a recruiter or hiring manager will see on a resume. So you definitely want to include the basic information. So I'll say probably a phone number, a GitHub repo repository if you have it, a LinkedIn, social media if you have it, your full name, an email and phone number. And then if you have any links to any personal websites or blogs that you maintain, that will also be good to put in there. So one of the things you should not put in there is I will highly discourage you to put your full mailing address on the resume. And I say that for a variety of reasons. So the first, well, not variety, well, probably one or two reasons. So the first reason why you shouldn't is because companies that you if companies might use your full mailing address as a way to kind of to screen you out. Some companies, so you know, say, how can I say it another way? So if let's say, for example, you're applying for a role at a city. Some companies might use their mailing might put some filters in the the applicant tracking system to filter out people who are too far away from the office. So by pulling a full mailing address, you might get screened out in that way. Other companies might just similar to that reason, they might favor people who are in particular maybe. So maybe if you're not, let's say, if you're applying out of the country, let's say out of the state, and you're planning to relocate, because companies might prefer somebody with who lives much more closer to where the business is located, they may also screen you out for that reason as well. So in general, I would encourage you to remove the address if you're not sure where you're actually applying. If you're applying for roles that are kind of fully remote, then you don't really need to put the address, your full mailing address, because you work remotely. So there's no need to put it. It's just taking up unnecessary space. Though I would say that, and one way you might want to might even consider breaking this rule would be if you're applying for a role where you are local to the company, and you want to put that in there as a way to convey to the company, hey, you know, I actually live a couple of blocks from the office, so you know, I'm actually will be an advantage over somebody who maybe lives in another city and may have to spend hours of commuting back and forth. You know, you'll never have to worry about me being on time. So you want to be completely kind of strategic on whether or not you want to put the mailing address or not. But I'd say to be on the safe side, don't include it. And if you're going to include at least anything, any information at all, I'll probably by minimum just include the city and then the state. That's probably what I wouldn't pull like the zip code or anything like that. All right. So another thing you should avoid is, and I know it sounds kind of trivial, but you want to avoid using Yahoo or Hotmail emails, and I will tell you why. So Yahoo and Hotmail are email accounts that are very old. They're, you know, if you're a '90s baby like me, I was born in the '90s. So these are kind of old companies, and maybe some of the more modern companies that are more modern, like especially companies more in the Silicon Valley area, which is where I live. They may look at your email and use it to screen you out. So make me think that you're probably outdated or maybe too old. And most of these companies some of these companies may tend to favor people who are much more younger or more kind of hip. So they'll use if they see a Yahoo or Hotmail email, they might just screen you out for that reason. I know it's kind of trivial, but yeah, I would avoid. I would instead use like a Gmail email account or Outlook or some other or email account that's not these two, because these are, again, like I said, these are considered kind of old accounts, and it won't create the impression that you want to create. So one more thing I would say, and I probably shouldn't. I don't think many people are doing this, but try to use email addresses that are appropriate, that won't actually convey the wrong message. So avoid using emails like Dragon Slayer 89 at gmail.com. A company might look at that and say, hey, well, he slays dragons, but he's not slaying dragons at my company. So you want to avoid any of these inappropriate email addresses. Email addresses that will put you in a wrong light. Try to be professional. Use email addresses that are kind of professional. I don't think that I haven't seen anybody who's doing anything like that that hasn't inappropriate emails, but I think I just thought I'll just put that out there in case there's people who are doing that. So technical skills. So one of the things good practices I'll recommend you do with your technical skills, especially people who are really skilled in a variety of different areas, is try to organize your skills in a way to make them easy to digest. So if you look at the example here, I have here on the left, this particular person, they actually grouped their skills into 3 different categories to make it easy for a recruiter who is looking at the resume to see, okay, well, this guy has skills in programming. This guy has some data visualization skill sets, and he can work with some databases. You also want to include skills that are relevant to the job description. What I see a lot of people do is they, and this is one of the things that they do particularly because of applicant tracking systems. So because the ATS systems, when you submit your resume online, they look for people with particular skill levels. They stuff the technical section with like all these different skills that the job description is looking for. They stuff it, and I highly discourage people from doing that, because one thing is it makes the technical skills section both really bloated and kind of disorganized. And also the other reasons why is that people run into including skills that they're not really good at, which is probably a no-no. Any skills that you put on a resume, you said it's basically a fair game. So unless if I put for example that I'm good at let's say you're good at TensorFlow, and then someone in an interview, so TensorFlow, even though you don't have a lot of experience with TensorFlow, and then someone in the interview will ask you a question about what does this function in TensorFlow do, and if you're not able to answer that, that's like pretty much an automatic elimination. The interview is over. So I would encourage you to only include skills that you're not good at. So honesty is the best policy. Another thing that I've seen in resumes, and I'm also honestly guilty of it myself, is kind of including skills, like common skills that people are already good at. So skills like Word or Excel, PowerPoint. These are skills that these are common skills that you're going to be using on the job that doesn't really serve a purpose, because it's just for if anything else, just taking up space. One of the resumes that we've recently reviewed probably a couple of weeks ago, they included some more of the superficial terms like skill terms, like I'm adaptable, I have a learning mindset, I'm creative. So these are superficial terms that don't really tell you anything about your skill set, because everybody, that's like something that everybody can do. Like ideally, you'd hope that any company who's hiring a data scientist will they assume that you already have those skills, that you have strong problem solving skills. So you really want to include terms in the technical session that actually convey the skills that you can do, so that are meaningful and make you stand out. Other than some of these skills that are just like anybody can have. Okay, so education. So most of this, what I have in the education section, is probably don'ts. So one mistake that many people do is they enlist the GPA. So you want to be careful. So with GPA and test and SAT scores, you want to be careful with those with enlisting them, because these are one of those things that um, could actually hurt you, or actually make you look as impressive. So, and I would say the only time you want to include the GPA and SAT scores is if it's actually something that that'll make you look good. So for example, let's say let's say you went to MIT and you have a 3.2 GPA. So that actually might be fine, because your MIT is considered probably one of the top schools in the United States. But a 3.2 GPA at a lesser known school that companies like Google or Facebook don't typically go and recruit at may not actually make you look good, because those companies might be expecting people who are going to hire to already be at the cream of the crop, the top of their school. So um, so adding the GPA here might just is like in this context, it's like neutral information that's not going to actually add anything, convey anything positive to you. It's just going to take up space, and it might actually hurt you. So I would only include GPA or SAT scores unless they're really good, like unless they're really impressive. Relevant coursework, I think, will be fine if you're entry level. But once you have a couple of years under your belt, professional user experience, you should probably just take that out, because at that point, if you're working already professional as a data professional, people are already, or already assumed you already have relevant skill sets in that area. So you don't need to take up space on a resume to list relevant coursework you've done. Like details from high school. That's another thing that I've seen people do. So I just as with the GPA and SAT scores, only list it if it's actually exceptional. So unless let's say, for example, you go to like a very prestigious high school and you maybe graduate from the top of your class. Okay, that might be something that a company will like to see. That makes you look good. But unless it's something again, that's something that's really exceptional, you're better off excluding it from their resume. So another thing you want to avoid in education is any volunteer or club involvements that are irrelevant to the job you are applying for. So it's okay to have these club involvements, but make sure if you do put the club activities, you somehow able to kind of add some descriptions that convey how it's relevant to the job you're applying for. So like this example. So if you look at the example that I have I've put here. So this particular person was the president of data science club, and you can say here that he's organized a lot of experience in leadership, public speaking, and also doing some volunteer working on volunteer analytical projects. So these are so this was a club involvement. It actually conveys relevant skill sets that he has that's relevant to the data science that companies would be impressed with. So yeah, always try to see. So the key takeaway for the education, try to really make sure that you're including details that actually makes you look good, and then actually is relevant to the job you're applying for, and avoid any neutral or negative information that can take away from the story you want to tell. Okay, and then I think we'll pause for a Q&A break before we continue the rest of the webinar.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, feel free to drop any of your questions in the chat. Daryl, I love some of the points that you made, especially about the the email that you use when it comes to putting that on your resume, you'd be really surprised at the emails that we come across sometimes. So definitely just start transitioning into that professional mindset and start with your email address. All right. So yeah, if y'all feel free to drop any questions that you've got in the comments. We did have someone ask about creating a resume when maybe you're not at an expert level and you're just starting out.
Right. So if you're just starting out, I would just try to pull together any relevant coursework that you've done. What's also it's fine to include any projects that you've done, either personal or any personal open source projects that you worked on, or any kind of pro bono work you've done that's relevant to data science, or the role you're trying to apply for. Those are fine. And then I think if you're like really starting out, like in the beginning, it's okay to include like jobs that you've, like maybe summer jobs or jobs that you've done. I think for the most part, you just want to convey to the hiring manager that you have a job, you can hold a job. You're not unprofessional. So it's okay to include some of the relevant, maybe jobs that are not exactly relevant to data science into your jobs, just into your resume, if you're not if you don't have a lot of experience. But try to also, if you can, try to see how you can maybe communicate aspects of the job that might help you stand out. So think about some of the not just some of the technical aspects of data science, but some of the other non-technical aspects of data science that that you as a professional need to do. Like, good common example would be communication skills, or presenting data to the people effectively. They think about, okay, what are some of the things that you've done at those non-technical jobs that'll actually make you stand out.
Great. We had someone ask, in terms of data analyst positions and needing Excel extensively, should you mention that on your resume in the skills section or no?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's fine. I mean, yeah. So I think, like, because Excel is actually still a skill set that data analysts use. So I think it's fine to include Excel. I think I've said in the presentation that it's don't include it, but I think try to avoid including like skill sets that are just common, like that are really common, like anybody will have, like say
Right.
Word, like Microsoft Word, or like
Yeah.
like the typing
Yeah.
skills. Yeah.
I will say that Excel is something that every time I try, and you all are going to laugh at me, but Excel is something that when I use, I typically have to Google to figure out what function it is that I'm even trying.
Yeah.
So.
I think I think when I was, and I'll be honest, when I actually started, when I actually worked as a data analyst at Tesla, I had Excel knowledge. So Excel is one of those skills. Excel is one of those in my opinion, is one of those skill sets that, if as long as you know a lot, you can know, you can actually pick up on the job. Like, you may not know a lot about some of the functions, like pivot tables or some of the other functions in Excel, but you can depending on the company you're working with, you can just easily pick up Excel. I'd say most companies you work with, in data science, you can probably pick up Excel pretty quickly. Like, it's one of those things you just pick up on the job. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so we do have some comments regarding soft skills and how maybe some of the superficial terms that you were talking about, so like the adaptability, creativity, how those they seem like soft skills. So not adding those on your resume.
Yeah. So I think the best way to do it, you want to be able to show it. So it's better to show those skills than rather than telling people you've done it. So showing rather than telling. So you can tell them, oh, I have soft skills, but the best way to do it would be to in the experience section of the resume, if you can convey some experience where you're using those communication skills, those soft skills. That actually tells you much better crafts a much better story than just listing it under the skills section.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So we've got someone that's asking if they should add a teaching assistant role that they did at a university to a resume.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
And then we've got someone asking about adding a radio jockey to their resume if they're looking for a Salesforce role.
Radio jockey. So I think that's great. Especially if you're like I said, if you're completely starting out, you don't have a lot of relevant experience in data science, then just including any job experience that you have would be fine. What I would be curious to see is if you can somehow craft it. If there's some particular story or some sort of a story you can tell about your experience as a radio jockey, that might be interesting. Might be interesting to might actually be pretty relevant to data science or data whatever role you're applying for. It could be data analytics. So try to think about maybe some how your experience there could actually, you know, you can leverage your experience to actually what story can you craft to actually make you stand out with whatever role you're applying, not just data analytics. So, but yeah, answer your question. Yeah, it should be fine. It'll be fine.
Good, thank you. All right, we've got just a couple questions left, and then we will have a Q&A at the end. So these last 3 questions, let's see, we got one more. So we'll go through these, and then, like I said, we'll jump back into it. But we have a viewer that's in their final year of graduation. High school scores, GPA was really good. College not as great. So would you leave off both? Or add high school? What's your advice there?
I would. So you said the high school scores was pretty great, but the GPA. So I'll probably avoid. I probably would just avoid putting them both on. Yeah.
Is it good to add academic projects to the resume?
Yes. So academic projects. So I think my opinion and a lot of opinion of many other people I've talked to is that experience is experience. So as long as you can demonstrate your skill set and data that you're able to analyze data and produce an insight or build some sort of deliverable, then it doesn't matter whether you're paid for it or you or it's work you've done for fun. It's experience. So academic projects are absolutely okay.
Good. Is it necessary to, or just a good bonus to add a personalized portfolio link on the resume?
Yes. So personalized portfolio links are fine. You can add a link to your portfolio. Actually, they're really good because you could hiring manager can look at that, click on the link, and they can actually see some of the work you've done and. Yeah, they have an opportunity to actually see some of the work you've done. So if you have a portfolio, absolutely post it on your resume.
Perfect. Okay, so we are going to pause there with questions for now, but we will make sure that all of the questions do get answered. Daryl, I'm going to turn it back over to you and the remainder of the presentation, okay?
Okay. Awesome. So how to create resumes that stand out. So there's a little method that I put together that will help you in crafting resumes, and I use some of the elements that I've already talked about in some of the previous sections of the resume that we talked about. So I call it the SESI method. So simplify, eliminate, concise, and impress. All right, so S. So S is for simplify. So S means basically when I say simplify, you want to write the resume for. So you want to think about the audience that you're going to be writing your resume to. So the majority of the time when you submit your resume to a job portal or you email somebody your resume or it's going to be the first person who's going to look at it is going to be a non-technical person, a recruiter. So it's absolutely important that the recruiter can really understand understand what you've done. So you want to avoid the use of any industry specific jargon that only people who work at a particular company worked at or the particular industry will understand. And you also want to avoid using abbreviations like ML, AI, or SVM or PCA. So avoid using those terms because if a recruiter, because it's highly likely that the recruiter or whatever non-technical persons looking at this will not understand. So one of the things I like to do is, and one of the things I actually did when I was starting out my journey as a data scientist is I had a couple of friends who were like non-technical, like maybe marketing or finance, and I'll have them look at my resume and they'll say, hey, I don't understand this. And I'll kind of use their feedback to revise my resume to kind of reword by the experience, so a lay person can understand it. So actually, I have a good example that I put here to kind of convey what I'm talking about. So this is an example that I kind of cobbled together. So if you look at this work experience, so this person, he worked on a project where he researched and developed deep stochastic Q learning market-based forecasting strategy for NASDAQ, and error residuals outperform traditional relative value model by 9%. So it's very technical. It sounds like he's really very deeply technical. And as great as it sounds, the detail as it sounds, many people who read this will not understand it, especially from only somebody who actually done this similar work or is fairly familiar with this kind of very familiar with the domain will understand what this is. So the one way you can rewrite this to make it a bit more clear what you did, and kind of get away from some of the technical jargon that's kind of will be intimidating to most people, is just to rewrite it to state simply what you did. So think about the tip here would be to think about what you're basically trying to convey, and ask yourself if I looked at if somebody, how would you explain this to somebody who's not familiar with the domain area, and write your experience so you can explain it to your mom, or explain it to your grandma, or explain it to your friend who's not in data science. Don't write your resume for a data scientist. Write it for a lay person, because if they can understand it and they can understand what you can do, then the lay person, the hiring manager will understand it. You can leave some of the details on the details about what you did, what model you used, or what techniques you used for the interview. Okay, so E is for eliminate. So I alluded to this. I mentioned some of this when we were talking about the education. So what you want to do is you want to remove any information that's irrelevant, that's redundant to the resume. So examples like, let's say, for example, you might see, but some resumes I've seen, they might have like full-time data scientist. So, word full-time is kind of irrelevant, because, what a hiring manager cares about is that you worked as a data scientist. They may not care if it's full-time. So that's like information here that's unneeded, and that's just taking up a lot of real estate on the resume. And to be honest, it might even be distracting from the message you want to convey. So another example here will be the objective statement that I talked about, like I mentioned beginning of the session, like hardworking, creative, data professional, seeking data position as a data analyst. That doesn't tell me anything. I think a much better statement would be a statement that's actually summarizing the skill set, like who you are, like who you are professionally, and what value you will actually add. So we'll move away from statements like this, like you're summarizing your aspirations and your objectives, and start thinking about what's the value What's your brand? What's the branding statement you want to convey? Who you are, and what can you do for the company? Irrelevant club activities, unless you've done something in the anime movie club that's kind of relevant, that shows maybe some communication skills or leadership skills or any data analytics skill sets. I would avoid putting that on a resume. And then also hobbies, like painting, salsa, basketball for the same reason. Okay, so I have a tip. So I mentioned one of the things that people, when I was talking about the skills section, that one thing you want to avoid is kind of bloating your resume with all these, but making that section overly bloated, a whole bunch of skills and technologies. One tip you can do to kind of even minimize that bloat, or even allow you to actually get rid of the technology skills section altogether, is to actually list your technology, the tech stacks you use within the experience section. So what this does, it actually does a couple things. So it actually shows the recruiter, shows the hiring manager what tools you use to do the work, rather than just telling them you have the skills. So it contextualizes the work you've done. And it also shows the company that you can accomplish what you can accomplish with different tools. So when you join a company, you're going to be learning their tool stack. You're going to be learning their skill, their unique tools and technologies. So you're going to be learning a whole bunch of tools. So what really matters to a business is, okay, well, he knows these tools, but he can also he's able to go and like pick up any new tools and skill sets that he can adapt to whatever problem that we have for him. So showing the tools you have that you use in a skill set is actually in the experience section is much better than listing it out having a technology section where you list these skills out, because it actually gives you more context about the work you've done. And also it allows you to satisfy the applicant tracking system requirements without having to kind of put a whole bunch of technologies that you may or may not be good at. Okay, so C. So C is for concise. So what I see a lot of people do, I've seen a lot of resumes, particularly people who are very experienced, who have a lot of technical background, as in engineering, or maybe done some research, maybe do research while in school. I see their experience section to be very verbose, and that's not good, because it just makes it kind of hard to the people to really. So for one thing, it takes away from the resume, and two is it just makes it really hard to really convey the message, your message. So what I would encourage people to do is to try to revise your statement to be as concise as possible. Think about, so every bullet point you write on a resume, you want to ask yourself, what am I trying to say with this? And is what I'm trying to say is it actually good? Is there a way I can actually say this in a simpler way, convey the message in a simple, concise way without all the words? In general, I'll limit my bullet point to be at least 1 to 2 lines in length. So I say length. When I say 1 to 2 lines in length, I mean that's like it should be one sentence that should take up one whole, be like 1 or 2 sentences, like 2 sentences or 2 or 3 sentences long. It should just be like one concise sentence that conveys a solid point that you want to convey about your experience at a company. And then try to be conservative in the word choice again. So let's say, like, instead of saying in order to, you just say to, or instead of writing is able to, just say can. So try to trim the fat as much as possible, and think about, I'm just kind of re-saying what I already said. So trim the fat and try to, each word on the resume should just kind of earn its way. If it's not saying anything that actually is meaningful, just get rid of it. So I have another example of a very verbose project description. So this is a project that somebody worked on that I've kind of cobbled together. So you can see here that this person he was working on a project where they um, downloaded some data from Kaggle, and they did some exploratory data analysis, and they fit where they used the machine learning model to predict churn or attrition. So one of the problems that this thing you can immediately see in this description is that this person is actually using a lot of listing a lot of details about their job, about the project that actually isn't really necessary. It's actually a lot of things to read, and while they're showing this, they are showing that they have some of the technical skills, this relevant skill sets that a company might be looking for. They can actually convey this message in a much more concise way. So a good revision would be to simply just state what the problem you solved, and what the problem you solved, and any results that you've gained. And I would actually leave any of the details about the modeling you've done, the techniques you've done, maybe the data cleaning you've done. I'll put that in the GitHub repository that our hiring manager can actually look at if they have time later. So by making it brief, you just make it easy for a recruiter to understand what you did, and then and what the problem you solved and what you did, and then you can also note any interesting results you gained, find on it, and also you make it easy for people to actually go and find out more information, because remember, recruiters are only looking at this resume for 5 to 10 seconds. So if they have to spend a lot of time trying to understand what you did, then it's just going to count against you. So you want to make it as easy and simple as possible for them to hire you, or interview you. Okay, so the last statement, so want to impress the reader. So by impress, you want to include information that makes you look good, that makes you stand out, that makes you say, wow, this guy is amazing. So try, and when you can, try to provide real tangible numbers that describe the scope of what you did, and the scope of what you did. So for example, we look at this one particular resume bullet point where you just wrote scripts to summarize log data. So think about how can you actually, what can you do to transform this? What numbers can you add to the work you've did to kind of make people can help a recruiter see what's the kind of the scope of what you did, the how, like the extent of the work you've done. So one possible way you can actually write it would be to rewrite to say, like, let's say, for example, like write scripts to summarize 1 terabyte of mobile log data on a biweekly basis. So this makes it actually more impressive because you have a lot more context to the work you've done. So it's not just like one simple statement, but you get a sense, okay, what if this person is working with data, you get a sense of, okay, well, how big was the data he worked with? What are some of the kind of the technical challenges that this person had to go through in order to get this script working? So another great thing you can do to impress is to add credibility markers. So instead of, for example, just saying, okay, I use Spark to find anomalies in data, try to think about drop some credibility, like any companies or any well-known companies, or maybe companies or other like individuals that actually makes the work that you've done seem more impressive. So instead of just saying I use Spark to find anomaly data, okay, well, who do you write? What was the company you write? Who did you do this for? Well, did you do it for a reputable company like General Electric? Did you do it for, let's say, a reputable celebrity? Try to add some credibility to markers to what you did to actually make it make what your work you did sound more impressive. And then the last thing I would thing you can do to actually impress the reader is describe the impact you've done on the work you've done. So not just what you did, but also what was the result. Did you increase? Did you reduce the latency of the product? Did the model you built reduce latency for a service? Cool. How much was that latency? And it's okay, you can give like a ballpark number. You don't have to be particularly exact, but just kind of give them a sense of like what was your impact on the product. Awesome. So a couple more tips that I have before we conclude. You want to tailor your resume for each job description that you're applying for. And one site that I thought was really useful, I just actually remembered when I was putting this presentation together. It's called jobscan.co. So this is a website where you can actually give the service your resume and also a job description, and it'll actually score your resume based on the job description, and it'll give you a score as to how likely your resume will actually pass the filters. So you can use JobScan, and then you can use jobscan.co, and then the job description to kind of tailor your resume based on the job you're applying for. Maybe you want to think about how you can actually modify the skills and experience you have to really tailor to the job you want to apply for, and make sure you're actually presenting yourself the right way. Another tip that I have is particular with roles where you may have a job title that doesn't exactly reflect the work you've done. So let's say you were working as a software developer for a company, but most of the work you've done was that of a data scientist, which is something you might see, you might come across. Sometimes you might be doing the work as a data scientist or a data analyst, but because the job itself, the role is embedded within, let's say, for example, an engineering organization, your title may not actually reflect the work as a data scientist. So what you might consider doing is just changing I know, and it's probably kind of controversial, but change the job title on your resume to kind of reflect the work you've done. Just so when somebody reads it, they're not going to dismiss you entirely because just your title. So this, again, just kind of going to the idea of kind of making it easy for a recruiter to say yes to interviewing you. The easier you can make it, the better. And then the last tip I'll have is to so most of the tips I have on some of the common formatting guidelines, tips that you have on towards resumes are guidelines. So feel free, you're welcome to break or bend any of these resume writing conventions that you see in order to best benefit the story you want to tell. So let's say, for example, you're applying for, I'm just throwing this out. So let's say you're applying for a data analyst role at Spotify. But in a resume, you apply for a data analyst role at Spotify, but you also have some experience as a DJ or a DJ or a music artist or like a disc jockey. So that may not seem all relevant to the job because, at first glance, okay, well, this guy's a DJ. How is this related to data science? But it might still be something that like company like Spotify might be interested in knowing, because you actually have an interesting it's actually a unique it's a unique background that most people who are applying to data science don't have, and you can probably use that experience to kind of tell an interesting story about what inspired you to go to what inspiring of you about your experience as a disc jockey that inspired you to apply for a job at Spotify. So you can actually use what you've done, some of the accomplishments you've done, to actually create a story of why would you be a good candidate for Spotify? What was it about your background? Maybe background as a disc jockey. Maybe you have some relevant experience in music recording that Spotify would be interested in, that actually add to the results you're able to perform as a data analyst rather than take away from it. So you may want to include some of those kind of seemingly unrelevant skills to the job, to the resume, because it'll tell you, it'll convey, it might tell us the story. So it might tell maybe a bad story message to one company, but to another company it might actually tell a great message. I can think of another convention. So another convention would be so another convention is one convention some people will often kind of knock against is like the ordering of the experience in your job, ordering of your experience on a resume. So the common convention is, okay, well, we want to have your most recent experience first, and then all the other experience kind of in reverse chronological order. But sometimes, depending on the story you want to tell, you may want to display your skills out of order. So like maybe the most relevant, most impressive skills experience that you have, you might want to put that first, and everything else afterwards. Again, and for the sake of kind of conveying the message you want to tell and making it easier for people to understand. So these are guidelines. So the conventions are guidelines, but they're not like hard, solid rules you have to always follow for in every case. So kind of use your best judgment. So, in summary, most resumes fail to convey a candidate's value proposition. And what you want to do whenever you write a resume, you want to think about what you want to convey, what message about your experience you want to convey, what story you want to convey to the hiring manager. And one of the best ways to do that is use like the essie method that we just described. And that concludes my presentation. And again, I'm open to answering any questions you have.
Perfect. Thanks so much. That was just such good information, and a great overview of what the expectations are when creating that resume, but also understanding that there is some flexibility in it. So let me just scroll back up and make sure that we get those questions answered that people shared earlier. So let's see. First, there are a few skills that get repeated in the experience section and the technical skills section. Any advice on how to go about maybe not necessarily duplicating information you've already shared, but making sure you get the point across?
Yeah, so I would say that if you have some of these similar skill sets in like so if you have experience, so in your experience section, if you're listing some of your technical skills you used, you probably most likely don't really need to have a technical skills section, because you've already provided a lot. Not only have you told the skills that you've used for each experience, but you provide some context. So removing the technical skills section will just kind of remove that kind of redundancy.
Gotcha.
Hopefully I answered your question properly.
Yeah. How do you optimize for both ATS and human readers?
So so it would be like I mentioned, you want to look at the job description, and for your job description, you want to look at your resume, and you want to look at what experiences that you have that can speak to some of the skill sets that they're looking for. So you want to take it at a kind of a case by case basis, where you want to look at the job description, what they're asking for, and see how you can maybe revise your experience to mention your skill sets. But at the same time, you also want to make sure that it's readable it's easy for anyone who's not anyone who is looking at the resume can kind of understand what you did. So you want to kind of take it at a so the trick is you don't want to be do a cookie cutter where you just like you do it once and you pass it down. You submit your resume to every job portal. You want to actually look at it from a case by case basis where you look at each resume, each job description, and you tailor your resume accordingly.
To follow up on that, someone asked, do you need to modify your resume every time based on the jobs that you're applying to?
Yes, that's the best practice. Yeah, to maximize your chances of actually getting an interview, you want to do that.
Right. Let's see, what things that you did on the job should you include in your resume? Is it a problem if it becomes lengthy, and how can you avoid that?
Yeah, you don't want to be too lengthy with your resume, with your experience. I'd say limit it to no more than probably 5, at most 4 to 5 bullet points. So only include you want to only include so look at the job description and only, I'd say at most only include the work that you've done that's relevant to what they're looking for in the job description. So anything that's not really relevant to any of your work experience that's not relevant to the job description, just take it out.
Great. Someone is asking about when you have gaps in your professional career and how to handle that on your resume.
Yeah, so I think gaps are so gaps are tricky. I think gaps are okay. You just need to explain, being able to just explain to recruiter what's or the hiring manager what was the gap. That I think mention the gaps is fine. You definitely don't want to hide it or lie about it. Just having a good story or explanation of what was happening at the gap. I think that'll be fine. That's okay.
Okay, this one is about formatting. So I'm going to put this question up on the screen so that we can see it. Yep. So this one specifically, so for formatting, do we keep summary, education, skill set, experience, and academic projects? Or are we looking at more of a format that includes summary, experience, academic projects, skills, and education? So that education at the bottom.
Yeah, so it goes to so the format, the way you order your skill, the different elements of the resume really depends on, again, the story you want to tell, or what will actually be more impressive. So if I'd say the summary statement it's one of those sections that are I had it on my slides. It's one of those sections that are kind of optional, like summary, like a summary statement you don't have to have a summary statement. So summary is optional. Like project or experience is optional. So if you have any projects or any academic projects you worked on, it's optional. But things like education, experience, and the skill section, if you have it, you can rearrange the order of them depending on what's going to be the most impressive. So if you came from a very prestigious school like Harvard, you may want to lead with your education. If you did maybe an internship with a company like Google or Facebook, you may want to lead with your experience. So it's whatever you think is going to make you get the attention the most, get the recruiter most. You lead with.
Perfect. Let's see, I'm scrolling back up because I want to make sure that I get these really great questions. So someone is asking, as an entry-level candidate, should they include a profile summary in the resume or not? If yes, what should be included? And we did have quite a few questions about if you are going to include a summary, how should it read?
Yeah, so if you are going to include a summary, I would actually restate it in terms. So again, not in terms of what I hope to accomplish, like what I want, but in terms of what value will I bring, like what can I do for you, like what. So if you go back to, I guess I'll go back to the. like I'm blank, the blank who can help you blank. So a good example would be I'm a data analyst who can help that a data analyst with experience in customer service. Or so you want to basically, you want to, in your summary statement, you want to be able to convey what value, what else, was it about your experience or your background that companies might find valuable, and
Right.
what could a company gain by hiring you?
Right. Let's see here. Just going through some more of these. So for a person applying for entry-level roles after graduation with no particular job experience, how do you include tangible numbers in the resume?
So tangible numbers. So if you don't have any tangible numbers, so one thing you can do, for example, is if let's say, for example, so one thing you can do, you can, if you have any project, let's say you worked on any projects. Let's say, for example, you've so yeah, so okay, so let me say this first. So if you don't have any experience, think about it in terms of milestones that you've accomplished. So if you don't have any like tangible numbers to express, you can talk about like maybe milestones or milestones you've accomplished. So let's say, for example, you may have you worked at a, let's say you worked at let's say you did you completed you did a relevant course. So you maybe say, oh, I completed this course on this subject that's relevant to the business. If you have any personal projects, maybe you worked on a project, let's say a open source project, and you made a contribution that had like maybe 5,000, like maybe 10 or 20 or 300 upvotes. You can mention the number of upvotes you had on your project. That can show, okay, well, this contribution you made to this open source repository was like thumbs ups. Or maybe you had a personal project that you worked on that had a lot of reviews on GitHub. So think about it in terms of that, like numbers, like, oh, how many people reviewed it? How many people used your product? Maybe what was the size of the what was the size of the code that you've written or you contributed to? If it was like an open source project like that. Yeah, think about it in that way. And then you can also just list it in terms of experience. Like maybe you worked on a project and you didn't have like maybe some sort of tangible number, but you can talk about like the experience, like the accomplishment. Like I helped this company launched this product. That would also work as well.
Great. We've got someone asking if it's good to practice bolding keywords.
Bolding keywords. Yeah, I actually haven't. That's actually something I haven't done. But I think if you want to give it attention to certain things on the resume over other things, I think bolding would be fine.
Great. Let's see. So we've got someone else that has asked what maybe the ideal word count range for a concise resume would be that doesn't feel overwhelming.
The word count. Well, I'll say this. So I wouldn't look at it in terms of the word count. I will look at it in terms of like the message you want to convey. So that's so. The idea here would be because sometimes so it kind of goes back to kind of the guideline I talked about. Some people have the one of the kind of common conventions that, oh yeah, resume should be only 1 page in length, no more than 1 page. But
Right.
sometimes it's okay to have more than 1 page.
Mm-hmm.
because it all depends on like the story you want to tell. So I wouldn't look at it in terms of like the word count. I would look in terms of, okay, what is the message you want to convey, and are you conveying the message right?
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's really the question. And are you conveying it in a way that actually it's clear, it's easy for people to pick up with it very quickly.
Good deal. Okay,
Yeah.
we've got 2 final questions, and then we will have to wrap up today's webinar. What if you have 20 years experience with one company and have had multiple roles due to promotions? So
Right. That's a good question. I would. That's a good question. That's a very good question. I'll actually describe it in terms of like amount. So I think this is where you might. So if you have 20 years of experience in one company and maybe through different roles, maybe you can take a kind of more like another unconventional way of your resume where you kind of talk about like maybe accomplishments you've made. Maybe you break up the resume into like different roles you had at a company and talk about what are some of the impressive milestones or accomplishments you've made and impact the problems you solved at each of those roles.
Great. Let's see. Is it fine to eliminate the technical skills section completely and add a few skills after every experience or project?
Yeah, it's fine.
Great. And then it looks like our last question. So should we add research assistant / teaching assistant in a separate section or under a different header, considering our actual work experience, even though it's a bit outdated? And I guess this is just really relying more towards the formatting and what the actual layout looks like.
Yeah. So it's I consider it as experience. So it's however you want to represent it. So if you want to put it under the technical, the academic, I think that's fine, or put it under experience. That's fine as well. But I would consider it as experience, since you're doing, something, teaching.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, and then this will be our last question. I know I keep saying that, but any tips on a cover letter? So
so cover letters are so what a cover letter should do. So a resume kind of tells you this. It's a marketing document that tells you the skills. This gives you a story about who you are as a professional and what you can do. So the cover letter should actually kind of add on top of that, and to kind of explain, tell you recruiter, to tell whoever's reading it kind of more of why you're a good candidate. So it should actually expand beyond, go a little bit beyond what a resume provides, and kind of speak to a bit more about the problems the problems that the company is facing, and how you're the great candidate for it.
Perfect. Okay. Daryl, thank you so much. I almost want to go revamp my resume just from hearing this. I think it's been so helpful. I'm going to drop some links for some of the things that HiCounselor has coming up, and then I do want to leave you with a chance to share any last minute advice on resumes. But thank you again for that. Just so knowledgeable, and thank you for sharing those bites of wisdom with us. Please feel free to leave your feedback, viewers, for Daryl and myself. I am dropping a link to the feedback form. Would love to just know what you thought about today's session. If you're interested in any upcoming sessions and maybe different topics, I've also got a link for tomorrow's info session sign up. So if you're interested in joining HiCounselor or learning more, would love to have you in that info session. So there's the link for that. If you've already attended an info session and you've just been waiting to apply, I'm happy to share the link to apply to the program. Our next cohort, again, is July 24th. And then I also want to make you aware of an event that we have coming up. We've got an opportunity to network with employers across the United States in a virtual job fair on July 27th. So I'm going to drop the link to register for that job fair as well. And then the last thing that I want to share with you is the link to that real world project. So for some of those questions about not having maybe as much experience as you'd like to put on your resume, this is a great way to do that. So feel free to join that real world life project and get registered for that. The last thing that I would encourage you to do is just follow us on social media, whether that is on LinkedIn or over on our Instagram at HiCounselor 2022. Would love to just be able to share with you what we've got coming up. But that's all that I've got for you. So thank you again for tuning in. And thank you, Daryl, one last time for joining us today and providing us with those resume tips and strategies. Any closing comments?
No, just feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn or comment on the webinar chat. If you have any more questions, I might stick around a couple of days and then answer them.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Daryl. We appreciate it. And we appreciate you all for joining. So have a great rest of the day as we get a little bit closer to the end of the week. So thank you all.
Awesome.